total crash out. Massive, insane crash out.
Once again, Nvidia has revealed the future of gaming and graphical fidelity.
Yeah.
And once again, audiences are rejecting it. It's feeling well beyond fake frames now. What Nvidia want their flagship top-of-the-line cards to be able to give you is fake characters, fake faces, and rendering
fake.
that utterly destroys any and all artistic direction from gaming.
That's
the
right.
internet has immediately rejected it.
Wow.
There are endless memes, fiery criticism, and even
Jesus
development
Christ.
partners trying to downplay their usage. As far as feature rollouts go and announcements go, this one has been a complete goddamn disaster. Now, of course, there is
I actually think it's the worst. It is probably the worst feature rollout they've ever had.
technical nuance in this story. We'll get to that. It's
really bad.
Well, let's talk about Nvidia's very bad week for PR. You know, Nvidia had actually been having a few real good weeks. Until now. You see, a recent report confirmed that last year, they made up 94% of all shipped graphics cards, and their competitor, AMD, was down to only 5%. And
Got the 5% right here. Got the 94% right here. Got both of them right next to me.
what we see is that even as the overall GPU market is trending down, at least partially because of high prices, Nvidia is still set up and is still dominating what is there. And, of course, that's before you think about all of their AI revenue, which is
massive.
vast.
That's the reason
going
why
into
their
their
stock went up
annual
so much.
GTC conference, they
originally
were
like
feeling
2022.
confident. CEO Jensen Huang told the audience that they believed the revenue opportunity for custom-purpose AI chips could be at least $1 trillion in the next year. But there was something Nvidia didn't have at the conference.
Holy
That
shit!
was any type of new gaming GPU. Instead, they had a new version of DLSS, and DLSS has its purposes and brilliant use cases for performance. But now Nvidia have decided the DLSS is
just
not
made her
about
Asian.
performance. They want it to make your games look better.
Yes.
There's going to be a lot of deep problems here, but I think we need to talk first about how any of this shit even works. DLSS was revealed all at once via blog posts, comparison videos, and a showcase with beloved and trusted tech gurus, Digital Foundry. Digital Foundry have certainly found themselves caught in the middle of this one. Now, here's how the thing works. Number one, it's really all about photorealism. You see, in the first incarnations, DLSS simply upscaled from a lower resolution. That essentially meant that you would get better performance. And then they added in frame generation.
There it is.
More frames so that even if, say, your game engine is spitting out 60 frames a second or maybe 30 frames a second, they can generate a bunch of frame between frames and get you.
I've always been a pretty big advocate that I think that frame gen and that kind of stuff is actually good for gamers. I do. Like, I know some people like, oh, they hate this. I don't think it's a good thing. Like, I hate this. I'll never use it. I think that the average person does use frame gen and it improves their experience. I do. I think the average person. But like for a game like, for example, Spider-Man 2, it's not a big deal. But you don't want to use this on Valorant or Counter-Strike, do you? I think that's clearly where the difference is.
A higher frame rate. Now, their new model is going to, quote, transform visual fidelity in games, all in the service of, quote, bridging the cinematic gap. Because we all want our games to look like movies. Now, I say that because not all movies look the same. Movies have lighting artists, movies have cinematographers, and a huge point I'd make is that generic photoreal would actually look terrible in film. That is not how films are actually shot. Lighting is faked and fudged all of the time, and it's done not to get around a problem, but actually it's done with creative intent. But let's talk.
A great example of this that Belluer could use is like if you look at a lot of old movies, like for example, like I don't know, like a Charlton Heston movie from like the fucking 60s or something like that. The night scenes are brightly illuminated. They're very brightly illuminated, whereas now a lot of night scenes in movies are actually extremely dark. And the reason why they were illuminated is because there was like a cinematic goal for that. I think that the other really good example of this is this. Oops, not this one. There we go. This movie here, Excalibur, right? I mean, obviously, like there's a certain amount of like grandeur to it that, you know, yes, it's real people doing this, but at the same time, it's like a certain amount of like fantastical nature as well.
about how this works. So every frame is
if you made that
generated
super
as
photorealistic,
usual.
it would be
So, like,
weird,
your
right?
whole, you know, shader
Extremely
pipeline,
weird.
right? So your vertex
The
shader,
Siege of
tessellation
Winterfell, couldn't
shader,
see
all
shit.
that stuff,
Yeah, exactly.
all that happens, and your game engine spits out a frame. Then
Jesus, that was
the
terrible.
real-time neural AI model looks at that frame. It analyzes the color and motion vectors, materials, lighting, etc. And once it understands everything in the frame, it then goes to do its thing, right? Now that basically means changing up lighting, colors, tones, all of that stuff. I don't want to say that this is like a direct filter. It is a tool that is directly interfacing with the model as presented by the devs. So you can have things like correct modeling on...
I do think that DLSS, like the tool that they have, I think that it's definitely, there's a use case for it, but right now it's just too strong. Like basically like the opacity should go from like 90% to like 30%. And I think it would be a lot better.
Rain, right, when it hits skin. You can have light correctly fold around all the parts of maybe
It's too aggressive. Yeah, it's way too aggressive.
All that kind of thing. And what it certainly does do is it makes things look way more detailed. The materials do just look like they're extremely high resolution photogrammetry, basically. And for the most clear showcase of this
is
just
the worst
look at
one.
the Zora tech demo. It shows it best with an environment that is perfectly set up to showcase this technology's strengths. So when it's applied within that tech demo, where, you know, we're leaning everything towards the strengths of this, that's great. The art direction of that demo matches what the model can output. Now, where it gets a little bit more tricky is when we start applying it to games that were not made with this thing in mind.
Exactly.
That's where things get real rough. So NVIDIA...
Well, and this is another thing that what they should do is they should, if they want to actually have this system be good, you should have different types of functions from the system, similar to how you have different colorblind modes. So, like, another parallel to this is if anybody played Wuthering Waves, a lot of people play Wuthering Waves with, like, a contrast filter on, because it generally, like, the game at a baseline is, like, very bright, and if you turn the contrast on a bit more, and you turn if you darken the screen a little bit, it looks 1,000 fucking times better. And I think that really, like, it's a matter of kind of being able to calibrate that in a way that makes it look good to you.
To some of the
it's like a
companies
reshade,
making
yeah,
the biggest
exactly.
games, some of the more photorealistic games, the likes of Capcom,
Because reshading
Bethesda,
is good.
Ubisoft, Tencent, way more.
But you want to have
and
control
they have
over
examples
it.
of applying DLSS 5 to many of
Is
those
it
games.
optional? Yes, it is.
Now, they say that the devs have complete control over how and where it is applied. They can set the levels of intensity. They can make sure the color grading is maintained, and they can even mask off certain elements of the frame or the models so that the effect is not applied. And those devs are, in many cases, singing the praises of the technology.
Yes.
NVIDIA took comments from Todd Howard of Bethesda, Charlie Guillemot of Ubisoft, and Jun Takeuchi of Capcom on how this is about pushing cinematic immersive experiences. Except that after...
I also think that a lot of people don't want to have things be completely photorealistic. I think that you can look at how popular anime is now. Like, anime girls are not real. Unfortunately, they're not. I know. And the truth is that a game that has like a certain type of style to it, like like World of Warcraft has a style to it, where it's like some of the cinematics are kind of photorealistic, but the people in the cinematics are not really entirely human. And I think that Riot has the same approach to that as well. Realism is boring. Yeah, I think that whenever you make things one-to-one, make them as realistic as possible, I think in almost every circumstance it ends up being boring.
Reveal, those companies are now all finding themselves on the defensive, and that's because the faces and the character models look like shit. Okay, quick reality check on how YouTube production actually works. For every shot that you shoot in a project, there's tons of B-roll, transitions, and visual aids that you often can't or don't film yourself. And that is where today's sponsor, Storyblocks, fits in. It's one subscription that gives you unlimited downloads of stock video, music, sound effects, and...
Speaking of a company, like, I think this... I can't see how these people are going to be around in 5 years. Like, if people should be able to AI generate this, right?
After Effects templates. And I think those templates are a real
feel like that's where
weapon
things
for
are gonna
anyone
go.
who's trying to make their channel look and feel better. You'll get clean lower thirds, data visualizations, map animations, the kinds of
Well, that's a
things
perfect
that
example
would
of being
take a
timeless.
motion
Yeah,
designer
exactly.
days to build from scratch. You can just search for, customize, and drop into your project.
Yeah, 5
and
months,
it's even a great
yeah.
way to level up your own skills because you
Seems
can
very
learn
risky.
how those templates are built. Now, we've used them before. I've kept my subscription for years, and it's just good to know that whenever a filming, sound, or editing problem comes up, that you have a huge library to back you
Wow.
up to help you solve those
Look at
problems,
that frog.
and where everything is licensed.
I wouldn't want to
cleanly
lick
for
him.
YouTube.
Look, he's red.
So no copyright strikes, demonetization surprises, or hunting through free sites hoping to find something that is legit and won't throw up a copyright strike. So if you're making content and you want to punch way above your weight on production
no AI is
value,
getting a PNG
check
image?
them out at
What is this?
storyblocks.com/Bellular.
And make it into
The
SVG.
link
Try it
is
and you'll
just down
see.
below.
Well, I don't know.
The internet's not being kind to the faces that NVIDIA are showing off as a part of this reveal. Now, the very first
It's
thing
'cause
to
it
show off
sucked.
is Grace Ashcroft from Resident Evil Requiem. Now, Requiem is a game that's already graphically very impressive.
Yeah,
If
it looks
you
really
look
good.
at some of the lower quality stuff, like, yeah, you can have some real just bork-looking lighting. I'll say that I played this with the performance settings on a PS5 Pro. I found the game to be quite visually stunning, and one of the greatest things was actually the implementation of lighting. Just artistically, absolutely just on fire. Brilliant job. So Requiem already looks fantastic. But then when you look at this comparison image, you see that it doesn't appear to just be lighting. Grace's cheekbones become more defined, her lips become fuller and get stronger lipstick applied, and her eyes become bigger. Hell, they even managed to make Leon Kennedy look bad. That is obviously a crime that we all know should be punished with immediate execution.
Yeah.
Now, it's rough because Capcom spent a lot of time making Leon and Grace look the way that they look. So you could say that this is a disservice to them. When you look at it closely, it is undoubtedly way more detailed. And sometimes that detail does actually look really impressive. And I'll say that in a limited and specific
there's another big issue is that, like, I think that a good example of this is, like, if you guys ever played Classic WoW, do you guys ever notice, like, whenever certain things that are outside of that time period, like, for example, like, you know, like the Burning Crusade, like, Deluxe Edition mount, like, it didn't really fit inside of the Burning Crusade aesthetic because it was just so much higher resolution and so much higher polygon that it kind of made everything else look bad. Or, like, if you ever turned on the water in, like, Classic WoW, where it's, like, the high-quality water, and then you compared it to, you know, the low-quality water, then it looks like it basically, it makes the trees and the grass look worse because of the juxtaposition, right? Whenever you have, you know, 2026 level cinematic quality water and you have it right next to 2004 level triangles, it looks really bad. And whenever you have all the shitty water, though, it actually makes the entire experience look better as a whole. It's art
I think
direction.
this technology is remarkably impressive.
Looks so out of place.
The problem
It does.
is here, it's just not artistically applied. And
That's
that's
the issue.
fundamentally because the outputs of DLSS 5 will be the outputs of DLSS 5 as its model is trained. It is, from what we understand, trained off kind of like super high detail, kind of like photogrammetry stuff. So no wonder it looks amazing in the Zora Tech demo. But what you basically find is lighting that is trying to be as realistic as is possible.
Well, it's also like it's making her hands, like this is another issue, right? It's like you're fundamentally changing it. Like you can see clearly, I guess actually maybe you guys can't from this, like the knuckles and the hands, it's making her look different. I think that's the issue. Is it also like lighting can also imply, like for example, like women contour their faces to make their faces look thinner. And I think that effectively DLSS is contouring in a way that distorts the image of the characters.
Plus,
that's
a lot
basically
of
what
the
it
biases
is.
that you'll find in these models, which
See
would
that?
lead to Grace suddenly having more
It's
lipstick.
catfishing?
And what
Yes,
you're basically
exactly.
finding is that the
True.
stylized lighting simulation, artistically crafted and applied in the game engine,
Looks
is
a lot better.
having this layer of let's make it photoreal
Yes.
applied after the fact, such that the characters are now lit in a little bit of a strange way that feels different to how they should feel.
Exactly.
And that's because DLSS 5 is
like
not
uncanny.
just applying some magic filter over the top of a frame. It will have been trained on many examples from other media, etc., etc., etc.
Yes.
Now, it's not a case that the model says, oh, that's
Will
a
this
woman.
work on all
Let
our
me
games?
go into
Yes.
the NVIDIA cloud and pull down a little PNG of some lips and put them on her. No, it doesn't work like that. All of this stuff is in the weights of the model. It's not going there retrieving these assets or anything. But I suppose you could say that the outputs of the model do approximate that. Approximate being a very, very key word. I don't want to get the technical stuff completely backwards, which is quite easy to do, because all this stuff is kind of technical. But to put a long story short, if you have a veneer of hyper-real over something that itself is not hyper-real, because it's a simulation, it's a game
looks
engine,
really weird,
then things are going to feel off, a little bit wrong to the human eye. And that is...
because it's distorted. That's the reason
what's
why.
going on. That is why every scene that NVIDIA have shown off with characters that are not in the Zora tech demo basically look weird. Specifically, they look like the characters pop straight out of the screen. But actually, the limits of the model's training do go further than that. Hogwarts Legacy gives us an amazing example of how this tech isn't fit for purpose right now. Because as soon as DLSS 5 stops being applied to classically beautiful photorealistic models, such as, of course, myself and Leon Kennedy, which is presumably what the model was trained on, well, then it overcompensates like wild, and it just has to make stuff up. And that's why you get things like the slightly cartoony style of Hogwarts Legacy leading to odd results. Look at this young man. His clothes gain texture, and he gains about 20 years, all because the materials on his face have this hyper-exaggerated photoreal look.
It's like what I was saying with the contouring. Like, you can achieve this look through makeup. And basically what it does is it just applies that makeup look onto everything. And I think that it creates a lot of, like, very unintended consequences, especially with, like, characters' faces.
He looks like a 30-year-old cast in a teen drama, which is quite funny, but that's weird. Not what we're going for. Take a look at this older woman. In the original, the scene is lit by the wand from the right side, and her model matches the game's art style while clearly showing her age. But with DLSS 5 on, her scarf and outfit achieve higher fidelity. They look real impressive. But her face is absolutely overridden by wrinkles. She looks like she's made of plastic, and the directional lighting is kind of gone. Her face now appears like it's lit from all sides. Even if it appears lit from all sides in a way that the model finds to be realistic, and perhaps that even is realistic, that may not be the artistic intent. There will be many times, say, making a film where the natural light actually might be a little bit of a problem, and you might want to put up, I don't know, something to block that light or diffuse it a little bit. The thing is, pure reality...
Well, there's a lot of things, especially like in shots that are in front of like, let's say there's a person standing behind a sun or behind a light source. If you don't fix that light in like post-production, or you add that light artificially, it will totally wash out the shot and make it completely unusable. So like, even though you might think that, oh, this would look great, it definitely doesn't.
And a photoreal art style are actually different things. And what that means is that loads of existing games, maybe all existing games, will quite simply look like ass whenever something like this is used. At least for close-up things like characters, where we really do see the uncanny valley. It's a little bit different for big environment shots. Some of those, I will admit, do look quite impressive indeed. Now, the best of all, I think, has got...
He's mogged out.
...to be Starfield. Oh man, those faces have gained a lot of detail, but all sense of directional lighting is gone. A man with a baseball cap seems to have a ring light pointed at him because his cap no longer shades his eyes.
Oh, wow. I didn't even notice that.
Over in Oblivion Remastered, we see facial shading from sunlight that is above is kind of gone in some places. And in fact, it seems that this new tech kind of just deletes a lot of shadows from loads of the games that it's used.
I think this is actually a really good point. I never even noticed this, that basically it just completely removes the lighting sources.
And those shadows are part of the artistic intent. So that's just gone. Wiped away by an implementation of this technology. And even Digital Foundry's relatively optimistic coverage suggests people will have trouble with how this overrides artistic intent, and whether this tech has anything to offer games that have style rather than just pure fidelity. Because of course, more detail is not better necessarily. Often in pieces of art, I mean literal art that someone might paint, or a frame in a film, you'll find less detail in places. Not because they're lazy, but because they're trying to guide your eye, because they're artists, and that's kind of their job. And with that in mind, we really see how every one of these shots is just kind of proof that NVIDIA's model doesn't understand those differences. But you know who
I
does?
think that one of the
audience. Look, some audiences
one of the biggest examples of this is Elden Ring. If you actually look at the pixels and the design of Elden Ring, like you zoom in on somebody like Godfrey, you zoom in on Godric, you zoom in on, I don't know, Fire Giant, the characters look like garbage. They look like absolute shit. But if you actually look at them, like in the lighting inside of the environment and everything fit together, then it looks really good.
Who care about graphical
That's art
fidelity,
direction.
and pretending
That's what
otherwise
matters.
is silly. People love to see a new game with flashy graphics that they can believe in. It's how the biggest devs in the world sell their games. It's how Watch Dogs had all the Watch Dogs stuff happen. It's how the biggest devs in the world sell their games. Crimson Desert's hype for the release this week is at least in part because it's a AAA open world game that looks goddamn good. But Nvidia are kind of telling on themselves with this technology. You see, it'll only be available to people with 5090s. And more importantly, as Digital Foundry explain, this is a slight issue. It doesn't actually work yet. You see, the whole DLSS 5 process was running on a separate 5090.
There's two 5090s to run this? Yeah, I don't know about this one, guys.
The one running the game.
Oh, no.
Now, if you've got a little bit of experience with, say, local AI inference, that will not be a surprise to you. Now, Nvidia says they'll get this working in a single card by the time it releases. But basically, this tech was not ready to be shown off. It seems to have been rushed out to ensure there was something for Nvidia to show at GTC for gaming, something to fire up audiences for what's next in graphical fidelity.
Yeah, it sure fired them up all right.
But unfortunately for them, audience interests are actually changing. A recent Newzoo report shows that the next generation of gamers don't have any overlap with the kind of hyper-graphical games that Nvidia wants to sell cards with. They don't need
That's right. Yep.
to spend $2,000 on a graphics card and $70 in a game to get the experiences they want because they're Fortnite, Roblox, and Minecraft. Most current gamers...
Yeah, because they're just stupid little kids. They're stupid little kids that want to play a game on a tablet. They don't need the game to have a million graphics. Like, they're not even going to understand it. Yeah. I mean, I feel like that's how I was with games back in the day. Is like, I never got super involved with graphics. I didn't care about that. I just wanted to play the game. I think that's the way most people feel. I'll be right back. Give me a second. All right, I'm back. Give me a minute. Excuse me. Now we're back. We good. Sorry about that.
Are not playing those big hyper-real games, and it's not because of a lack of availability. Like always, most of this round of marketing won't really touch the games that you play in a meaningful fashion. All of this is Nvidia showing us the absolute cutting edge of what they think their tech can do. And you know what?
I think a lot of people can appreciate the photorealism and like the really good graphics of something like Expedition 33, Red Dead Redemption 2. Like back in the day, I remember whenever Dude, the biggest one ever, in my opinion, was Final Fantasy X. I remember when that got announced, and I was just like, what the fuck? Like, that was a whole new level. You think Crysis? See, I never really got involved in that. But for me, it was Final Fantasy X. That was the big jump.
Engineers have done some really cool research here. They've made some really cool technology.
They have.
It's just not really applicable to the artistic side of games. And because of that, it feels massively oversold. And that means it just all feels untrustworthy. As a general rule, the first version of a technology tends to be a little bit of a disaster. I mean, cool, shiny, impressive, maybe even inspiring, but often quite evidently not quite there yet. We're seeing this happen here, and we've seen it before. It's the same thing with, say, the ray tracing back when Nvidia and EA collaborated to get it into Battlefield 5. The pitch back then was that, yes, it may tank some of your performance, but man, it'll be worth it for the graphical effects.
Looks cool.
And the demos were pretty. Some of the graphics were pretty, but back in 2018, the ray tracing was kind of rough. It was graphically expensive, and most people turned it off because they wanted to play their games, not purely look at them. But now, things have changed.
I mean, like, the thing is that whenever you're playing a competitive shooter, you don't want to have the lighting distracting you. You don't want to have that stuff happening. Like, again, like, it's the wrong genre. Like, you should be putting this in games that are not reaction-based games.
Devs have
In
figured out how
competitive
to make
games.
ray
That's what
tracing
I would say.
actually serve their games,
It's my opinion.
rather than just slathering it across every surface. And you know what? Resident Evil Requiem is one of those games.
Damn, didn't even shoot him in the head.
And what I just said there is kind of the main point.
Oh.
In 2026,
Oh.
the fastest way to get better performance in
That was
Resi
me.
Requiem is to mess around with the ray and path tracing settings. Not because those things failed, but because developers figured out how to implement them on their own terms.
Yes.
So dev implementation is king.
And I think that's one thing that a lot of people forget is that, like, Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 is a great example of this, where it's a game that is optimized incredibly well, and because of its great optimization, it plays on a performance that, like, people wouldn't expect. I think that also, like, you have on the opposite side, Monster Hunter Wilds. Holy shit, what a fuck up that was. And then you also had now Crimson Desert. Crimson Desert has a lot of flaws, but performance and optimization seems to not really be one of them. Now, I think that I've encountered a couple of slowdown areas. One of them, actually, I think I've encountered one of them. But in a general sense, Dragon's Dogma 2 had the same slowdown issue. It did. And because it's not on Unreal. Yeah, well, the problem is that, like, you say, oh, Unreal is the problem. I don't agree with that value. I don't agree with that assessment. Black Myth Wukong was on Unreal. I think that was fine. And so was Expedition 33, and that was fine too. I think that it's a matter of it being optimized properly. And whenever you look at, for example, whenever you look at the way that a developer optimizes a video game, you see the amount of tricks that they play on you, where it's like everything that's not in your direct field of vision actually despawns, for example. Like, that's the way some games work.
Developers having artistic control over the technology is king, and it always has been. And that's the problem with DLSS 5. It does not let them do that. Quite clearly, that is the case when you look at these demos. It takes the developer's finished frame
shit.
and
Well,
it
I'm just saying,
decides
right?
what it should
But people don't
have
really think
looked
about
like.
that.
For some games, that may look better, but in many cases, it quite clearly does not.
I think that the other big problem is that it upscales faces in a much higher ratio than it's upscaling clothes and other parts of the environment. So it makes the faces look out of place when it makes the rest of the game look bad. Because it's what I said before, like, about the juxtaposition, right? Where there's, like, one thing that, like, really stands out because it's, like, way higher quality.
Because the ML inference is not down to the dev team. It is down to NVIDIA's model and every piece of media fed into that, how it's trained, how it's post-trained. And the problem is that can override the vision of the people who actually made the game, and that can homogenize what the player sees. And that's why there's been such an immediate pushback against the tech. It feels offensive to artistic direction.
It is.
But hey,
it's not offensive, it's artistic erasure. Like, you're erasing the artistic direction by replacing it with an algorithm. That's what you're doing. And I think that in older games, like very old games, whenever you upscale them, I think you can have interesting and, like, funny interactions. And sometimes it looks cool whenever you upscale something that's, like, really low quality. But in a general sense, I don't think it's really something that you should do. And I think that what's going to happen in the future is you are going to have games that will understand the way the upscaling technology works and then design in a way that allows the upscaling technology to further upscale their artistic vision rather than just not designing for it at all. I think that this will just become another vector of design that they're using to effectively future-proof their games. That's probably what's going to happen.
Ray tracing took 8 years to become something devs could use well. Maybe 8 years from now, NVIDIA will have found another advancement that'll mean we won't need to think about
it's a tool.
The
Exactly.
wanted at all. Okay, well, good luck in the stock price, Jensen. It's going well for you. Best of luck.
Yeah.
Fantastic. We love it when the numbers go up. And do you know what number could go up?
Which
the price
one?
you'll pay for a game in PlayStation when it's on sale as compared to one of your friends. This isn't some niche experiment in some random part of the world. No, it's happening in America as well. You can learn all about it in this video next.
Gaming is a national security threat. Wait, what the fuck? What the fuck? No. No, it's not. What do you mean? Let me go back. I'll link you all the video. Obviously, I've watched Bellier's videos forever. I love Bellier videos.